There's something swimming over the water. Muskrat, I guess.
Muskrat. Did you see his flat tail on top?
Yeah.
Where'd he come from?
He just came up from the bottom.
Yeah, his tail's like flattened this way.
Yeah. Got him.
Dang.
Whoa. Strong fish. I think I was right as I was pausing it, yeah. It's like right as I was about to pause it. So I don't know if the pause really made a difference or not. Got him. Next cast. Whoa. Alright people, welcome to Cross Country Bank Angler. It's another rainy weekend in my area today. We've had a pretty rainy, soggy winter here, which isn't that unusual. You know, we really don't get a whole lot of snow anymore. It doesn't get consistently cold enough for that. You know, we 20 years ago we definitely used to, but I guess, you know, the world is changing. But yeah, I tried to go out yesterday. You know, I knew a system was coming, but it was mild temps. You know, in the winter, one of my tips, I guess, is to try to, if you have a string of milder days and you're a bank angler, you know, fishing ponds, try to go out after a couple of those milder days. You know, that can be enough to get the water temperature a few degrees warmer and get some fish moving. You know, we were there for maybe an hour, didn't get a bite, and then the rain really came on very suddenly. You know, it was super windy, and the rain, it just was raining really hard, and I just got wet, you know, within minutes, even though I had a raincoat on. So, but the footage today, and what I really want to focus on here, has to do with bass fishing in ponds in the winter. You know, bank fishing for bass in ponds this time of year. You can definitely catch fish year round. You can catch bass year round. There's no denying that at this point. But I do think it's still a bit more challenging for bank anglers. The fish tend to not go for the deeper water, and if you can't access that deeper water from your spot, then it's going to be tough to get bait in front of a fish and get it close enough to them, because, you know, they're a little more lethargic. You know, in that cold water, they're not as comfortable. They're not usually willing to run something down from a far distance. You're not going to, you know, the strike zone of a fish is just going to be a little bit smaller. But this footage is from the holidays, actually. I was back at my parents' place for Christmas, and it says actually from Christmas Day and a couple days later. Definitely not an expert in winter fishing, but, you know, this trip was successful. You know, one of the better winter days of bass fishing that I've had in quite a while. So I wanted to make sure to touch on it, talk about some of the lures that worked. Without further ado, let's get started. First lure that I want to make sure to touch on is going to be a suspending jerkbait. This is kind of like one of those lures that, you know, if you look up any videos about winter bass, you're probably going to see something about a jerkbait. Trying to get it to focus on it there. There we go. It's the Rapala X-Wrap. This is the 1/4 ounce size. The color's called Olive Shad, I think. All right, people. So the footage, the audio from this day didn't really turn out. So I'm doing a quick voiceover here, but, you know, this was like our 6th or 7th cast of the day. And you can see I'm just doing, you know, this is the first time trying out this X-Wrap, a bit more advanced than some of the other jerkbaits that I've used. And we're not going particularly fast or slow. You know, in the winter you can really, if the water's really cold, you can slow this retrieve way down, but we're just doing the kind of standard twitching and pausing with this thing right now. Got it on a kind of a heavy setup, 15-pound line, 10-pound leader. You can see we're just doing this erratic pause, and we get hit on the pause there. And it turns out to be a decent fish here, you know, about typical for this pond. You can see he's hooked kind of funny there. I think he was hooked in the mouth originally, and then as I lifted him up, the hook slipped and caught him further down. But he definitely went for it, and it didn't, you know, it felt like a normal strike, you know, where the fish has the lure in their mouth. But there he is, guys. About I would say maybe a 13-inch bass. Not bad at all for Christmas Day. You know, this time of year, it's usually tricky to catch one. So felt pretty good about getting one kind of right off the bat there. But, you know, we didn't really get any other, or I didn't get any other hits on the jerkbait that day. But it was pretty fun to kind of just try that lure out. And then within just a few casts, get a hit. So fun start to the Christmas Day bass fishing at the Childhood Lake. And there he goes. Swim off nice and strong there. Always good to see. And here's a little slow-mo shot of the lure again. Like I said, that olive's just a shad pattern. I don't know if this is that much better than the other jerkbaits that I've used, but it does feel good to kind of get one pretty quickly with it like that. So definitely a lure I'm going to keep trying through the spring here. No doubt about that. And, you know, I don't fish a whole lot of suspending jerkbaits. I don't have a ton of confidence in them. I've tried them a few times, and I've definitely caught some fish on them, but it's just not like I haven't been able to find like a consistent bite with them very often. Yeah, you know, it's one of those lures you can fish it really slow. You can, you know, draw a bass up from the bottom. You know, they'll see that thing just kind of hanging there. You know, you're twitching and then pausing, and you're just letting it sit there, and you know, the bass come up and stare at it, and either they decide to eat it or they don't. All right, so before we move on to the next bait, I'm throwing in this little clip here. My dad actually casted, you know, fished with that setup that I was using for a while, and he did catch a fish on the jerkbait as well. Casting in this shallow cove here, not really where you'd expect fish to be this time of year, but it was just a small one. He's kind of pointing it out there. He made a cast across the cove, and this little bass was still sitting up in there. You know, really any time of year there's going to be a few fish shallow, guys. It's kind of, you know, always make a couple of casts shallow. But yeah, my dad kind of struggled on this day, but I wanted to provide some video evidence that he did manage to catch one. So another one for the Rapala X-Rap. Alright, so the next bait I wanted to make sure to touch on, and this is one that I feel like most people don't really talk about for winter. You know, I think this is definitely more of like a finesse, slow bait, and a lot of people, you know, will say throw the jig or a Ned rig or something like that. Something that's a little more, you know, makes a little more commotion, I think, on the bottom. It's just going to be the old Yum Dinger. There we go. This is in the June bug color, 5-inch. And this is, you know, I feel like most people say this is sort of like more of a summer color, that purple with the blue flakes in it, but I used it that day, and mainly just because that's the color that I had work at that lake before. So, and this was probably the biggest fish today. I'm going to go ahead and run that footage as well. All right, guys, so make a long cast here on the spinning setup. I've got 10-pound braid on here, which is very thin diameter. You can make a long cast with it. Very sensitive, no stretch. So we were just kind of letting this thing sink down. Not exactly sure how deep the water was, maybe 6 to 8 feet, I'm guessing. Maybe 5 feet. You know, just not working it much at all. It's kind of a do-nothing lure, isn't it? The Yum Dinger, the stick worm, whatever you want to call it. You know, just reeling up a little slack, popping it off the bottom, and then just letting it sit. And it was a pretty long cast, and the bite came, you know, we do another lift there, reel up our slack, and then we felt the hit. And I think this was definitely a little bit nicer of a fish, maybe a 15-inch fish, 16 maybe. I would say 15, maybe 14. Gave a good fight though, definitely one of the better fights of the trip. This was maybe 15-20 minutes after the first one. So yeah, even in the middle of the winter, Senko style stickworm is still an effective bait. It's a year-round bait, so don't forget about don't just sort of put those away in the winter. Especially, I think this sort of more subtle technique with an extra wide gap hook can be better. So yeah, another nice one here. Just a little bit healthier, chunkier, meatier bass here than that first one, maybe. Definitely a solid one to catch out of this pond. Not bad at all, guys. Like I said, good start to the day to catch another one. Nice colors on that fish as well. Fairly clear water in here, so the fish usually have, pretty distinctive markings for the most part. And let's send him back on his way. Solid bass for sure, guys. Beautiful fish. All right, and then the next bait that I want to make sure to talk about, and this one really ended up being the most important lure of the trip. This was the one that, there seemed to be more of a pattern with it and caught the majority of the fish. And that's going to be a flat-sided crankbait. Here it is. This is the Rapala Ots Garage Tiny 4. That's what this is called. This color is just called Brim. I really like the color on this. It's kind of chartreuse and got some orange on the bottom and then green on the sides and then kind of a brownish back. Pretty small crankbait. It's maybe, I think it's 5/16 of an ounce. Balsa, no rattle at all. You can see the body is quite thin on it. And I've actually had this lure in the box for a while. And I don't know, I hadn't thought about really throwing it, really trying it. This is another lure that gets talked about this time of year, is a flat-sided crank. You just have that much tighter action. This thing really, it's very tight action. It almost looks like a liftless crankbait going through the water. The wiggle is so narrow on it. It's got some nice big hooks as well. I kind of like the hooks on this thing. And I think this is a good, it's called Brim. I think it is a good, maybe a bluegill type color, stained water type color. The conditions at this pond, you can kind of see in the video, it was, not the first day, Christmas, it was mild and cloudy, and then on the 27th, it was sunnier. And this lure worked both days, so. And there was actually a few catches I made with this that weren't recorded. So, needless to say, I was impressed with this little thing. But yeah, let's go ahead and run some of the footage of the catches with this. All right, guys. So, to start off here, I want to talk about retrieves. I was basically just, casting this thing out and reeling it back fairly quickly. Almost burning it, and boom, we get a hit there on a little bit of a pause, I think. And this was maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 casts, and, I was just sort of trying it out, getting a feel from the action, and this guy smoked it. I mean, they were really, there was no fish that kind of missed this thing or, shook off or anything like that, really. They were all getting a lot of the hooks and seemed to be committing to it pretty well. Having to be careful here, there's lots of this fish was thrashing around and some big trebles on there. Got to be careful with those treble hook baits, but yeah, another one. Like I said, most of the fish in here are around that same size class of like 10 to 14 inches. This guy was probably a 12-incher or something like that. But another pretty bass, guys. Definitely a lot of fun. And I handed the rod over to my dad to let him throw it around a little bit. I kind of showed him what I was doing with it. There we go, our first fish on the crankbait. Our first one on the crankbait. So I was pretty surprised to get a hit on that lure, period. But there we go. So yeah, and this one made a nice little splash as he was taking off there. Yeah, so this lure, like I said, we were doing a pretty fast retrieve. You know, something you'll probably can find on YouTube is, you know, this concept of speed cranking in the winter, which is, you know, you just don't, you know, not slowing down at all, doing some burning and pausing, burn, pause. That's the cadence that's often said. And that seemed to be sort of what was working right now. Boom, we get another one. Just a little bit. This was quite a bit after the others, or that last one. You know, we'd fished around and, you know, tried a couple other things. I'd given my dad the crankbait rod for a while too. I was kind of surprised he didn't catch one because he was doing everything that I told him to do. But you can see, look how well the fish are eating this thing. It really must imitate the bluegill in here, or the minnows, or whatever the fish eat in here. I know there's bluegill that they will feed on, so I'm assuming that's what it's imitating. Bit of a slightly smaller one, maybe like a 11.5 incher, maybe a little skinnier, but yeah, there was definitely a little pattern going on with that crankbait, guys. No doubt about it. And then this was a few casts later. Like I said, just doing that, you know, fairly fast reel. We're not burning it super hard, but definitely fast, in my opinion. You know, this is a 7-0-1 reel, so fairly fast reel. Not super fast, but faster than you would expect for December fishing. And this last one just cracks it, guys. I mean, you saw, he stopped it. This fish just stopped the lure. And yeah, I mean, they wanted it. Like I said, it was that reaction strike. You know, you're using that movement, that vibration to kind of coax a reflex out of the fish, essentially, almost like, you know, a cat in a toy, you know, or a laser pointer. You're just using that movement to get their attention. And I think these fish, you know, we were just burning it over their heads, and they were coming up and grabbing it. You know, there was still some grass that hadn't died back that they could kind of hide in.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
How are you working it?
Just steady retrieve.
You just hit it on the steady retrieve, huh?
Just hit on steady retrieve.
That's about all they were hitting that one I was using. I mean, they would just crack it right then, you know, at full speed.
No toothies.
That's a decent one.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Shad bait.
Well, this one could be better because it's kind of got some chrome and there's some sun out today. Could be throwing a little more light. There's something swimming over the water. Muskrat, I guess. Yeah.
Where did you come from?
He just came up from the bottom.
Yeah, his tail's like flattened this way.
Yeah. Got him.
Dang.
Whoa. Strong fish. This looked kind of funny, but he definitely went for it. All right, hold on, buddy. Hold on, buddy.
That's 2. You only weigh it. That's 17 inches.
Another good bass right there. I think we found the spot where they're holding a little bit. Flat cranks, or flat-sided cranks are the winter bait right now. 1.74. You were close. All right, let's let him go. Yeah, that's a good one. Flat side. Just doing some work out here.
Stop and go?
I think I was right as I was pausing it, yeah. It's like right as I was about to pause it. So I don't know if the pause really made a difference or not. Got him. Next cast. Look at that.
Almost the same size.
It's not quite as big. Next cast, people. Look how he ate that too.
I know.
That's in his mouth. He just.
You gonna need pliers on that.
I might.
Or you gonna get in trouble for your thumb.
Yeah, I'm gonna need pliers or I might hurt this fish.
Yep.
You got him. All right. He's bleeding a little bit, but let's let him go. All right, guys. Tricky unhook. Thank you, Dad, for helping me with that one.
Pull it off the gill wrecker.
It's a little bit kind of a darker fish. I'm just gonna let this one go. I'm not gonna get a picture. Want to make sure he's okay. Whoa. God, it's going crazy.
All right, people. So you can see there that little, yeah, that flat-sided crank definitely impressed me there. The Yachts Garage Tiny 4. I've been trying it around my area too, some of the ponds near me since I got back, to see if I could get it to work, and I haven't yet, unfortunately. I was really hoping this would be one of those lures that kind of translated over from that lake to the ones around me, but it really hasn't. But I'm going to keep trying it. I'm definitely going to throw it some in the spring. You know, maybe it'll do a little better once the water temperature starts to go up a little more. But anyway, with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little something about winter bass fishing from the bank in these small ponds and lakes. You know, it can be tough. You know, I definitely get skunked the most in the winter, I think, especially if I'm just going for bass. But you know, if you find the right conditions, you know, you fine-tune your presentations. You know, narrow your options down to, you know, baits that can be worked slower or have a more subtle action. You can definitely still find some success out there. So, you know, unless you're just totally, you know, iced out up north somewhere, you know, don't just totally, I wouldn't totally give up on the fishing in the winter. You know, look for those, you know, watch your weather, look for those opportunities, and hopefully you can catch a few bass to tide you over until the spring comes back, and that's when the fishing really turns on. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. If you like this video, you should definitely subscribe to the channel. We've got weekly videos dropping on Cross Country Bank Angler. You know, really any kind of lure fishing, you know, wading, ultralight, bait finesse, you know, bass fishing, topwater fishing. If any of that sounds good to you, you should definitely hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know whenever I post something fishing related, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Peace.